Welcome to Lying and Cheating. Please like this video and subscribe. Lying and Cheating. It was supposed to be my birthday, a day to celebrate. Instead, I was left picking up the pieces of a suspicion that had been gnawing at me for days. I never thought I'd end up here, staring at my wife's phone, but it felt like I'd reached the end of my patience. Jenna always made it seem like we had the kind of relationship where we didn't need to check up on each other. She'd say to our friends, "We trust each other too much for that," with this proud smile. And maybe for a while that was true. I used to think we had the sort of connection that wasn't built on secrets. But tonight, on the day I was supposed to feel special, I found myself facing a truth I never wanted to know. Jenna came home around 10 last night, absolutely plastered. She was stumbling so badly, she could hardly make it past the front door before collapsing onto the couch. Watching her like that was surreal because Jenna could usually hold her liquor, even when she went out for a big night. But something had changed in her lately. She'd started doing strange little things that, on their own, might not have raised a red flag, but together felt like pieces of some larger, darker puzzle. For example, she'd been parading around the house naked, making a big show of walking from the bedroom to the bathroom and back again. At first, I didn't think much of it. I figured maybe it was some new confidence thing, or even a silent invitation. But she never came to me, not even once. Instead, she'd shoot me these weird, almost guilty looks if she caught me staring, as if I was the one doing something wrong. After she passed out on the couch, it was like a decision made itself in my mind. I knew from experience that when Jenna drank like that, she'd be out for hours, dead to the world. Normally, I'd just leave her there, maybe throw a blanket over her, but tonight was different. Something in me couldn't just sit there, pretending I didn't feel this creeping dread, pretending I didn't notice her distant looks or the way she'd avoid my touch. I needed answers. So, I grabbed her purse from where she tossed it by the couch and fished out her phone. My hands were shaking as I unlocked it, hoping against hope that I wouldn't find anything to confirm my fears. I went to Snapchat first, thinking if there was anything incriminating, it would be there. She'd been chatting with some guy. Nothing new. But something about the frequency of the chats made my stomach clench. Unfortunately, there wasn't any concrete evidence, just bits and pieces that hinted at something more without ever quite spelling it out. Frustrated, I decided to look through her texts. That's when I noticed the messages to her dad. Now, this is where things get complicated. Jenna's dad isn't her biological father. He's her stepfather, the man who raised her from the time she was 2 years old. Their relationship always seemed complicated. I didn't pry too much, but over time, I'd picked up on some disturbing details. Jenna had once hinted that he'd asked her for inappropriate pictures in the past, even offering her money. She claimed that was all in the past, a twisted chapter she'd closed before we met. I didn't press her on it back then, thinking it was just another dark family secret she'd chosen to bury. But scrolling through those messages, I felt a chill settle in my bones. Most of them had been deleted, with only a few remaining, all conveniently starting around 1:24 p.m. the previous day. I noticed a message from him, saying, "Damn, looks like it's ready for Junior." The words seemed innocent enough if you didn't know the context, but to me, they were a punch to the gut. My mind was racing, trying to piece it together, and then I saw her response, "Yes, it is." It felt like someone had drained all the blood from my body. Then, he replied with, "Well, I'm gonna have to go rub one out." I don't even know how long I stared at that screen, my mind reeling, trying to make sense of the words before me. What was this? Some sick joke? Or was it a twisted reality I'd been blind to all along? The rest of the texts were just her asking him for money, claiming she'd ended up with a $300 bill at her office holiday party. But it was all too much too off. It didn't make sense. None of it did. And the dread gnawing at my gut only grew. Feeling like I was plunging headfirst down a dark rabbit hole, I went over to her photo gallery. I felt like a voyeur, like some criminal for even looking, but I couldn't stop myself. Her main gallery didn't show anything unusual, but a hunch made me check her recently deleted folder. That's when my heart stopped. There, staring back at me, was a photo of Jenna, taken right on our couch. She was lying back, half naked. Her expression a mixture of mischief and something else. It wasn't a look I'd seen her give me in a long time. The timestamp on the picture read 1:22 p.m., 2 minutes before that disgusting "ready for Junior" text from her stepdad. I felt like I was going to be sick. But it wasn't just one photo. There were dozens of them, one after another, taken over days, weeks even. Each one more explicit than the last, all captured in places that were painfully familiar. Our bedroom, the bathroom, even the kitchen where we'd shared so many meals together. These weren't innocent selfies or playful shots. They were intimate, meant for someone else, someone I had never suspected. As I kept scrolling through her deleted folder, I felt like my world was crumbling. Each image was a betrayal, a piece of my life shattered. It was as if I was looking at a stranger, someone I'd never known, and the trust one thought we had felt like a distant memory, something I'd imagined but had never truly existed. I couldn't help but wonder, how long had this been going on? How many times had I been in the next room, oblivious to the double life she was living? The deleted folder only held pictures from the past 30 days. But if she'd gone this far, how much more had she hidden? How much more of her life, of our life, had been a lie, sitting there, surrounded by the silence of our home? The weight of it all settled on me like a suffocating fog. I didn't know what I was supposed to do next. Did I confront her? Pack my bags and leave? Tell someone? The anger, the hurt, and the betrayal twisted inside me, building to a level I didn't know I could feel. But even through all that pain, I couldn't shake one thought. I needed to know the whole truth. As I stared at that last image, the one that would be burned into my mind forever, I realized that this was only the beginning. I had opened a door that couldn't be closed, and on the other side was a darkness I never wanted to face. But now that I had, there was no turning back. It was almost surreal, looking at these pictures that she'd so willingly sent to other men. I hadn't received a photo from her in months, not one. And the few she'd shared before weren't anything close to this level of explicit. A simple smile, maybe a shot from the shoulders up. Now, in my hands, I held evidence of a side of her I'd never known. A side that seemed to belong to someone else entirely. It was like seeing a stranger behind the face I'd trusted, the face I'd loved. I scrolled further and froze. There were 2 nudes of a guy about our age, someone who lived right here in town. I didn't know him personally, but I knew his girlfriend. She was someone I'd seen around and nodded to in passing, someone who had her own life, her own relationship. It hit me that she probably had no clue. That woman didn't know, just like I hadn't known. And I felt a surge of anger, not only for myself but for her too. She deserved to know what her boyfriend was up to, just like I did. So, without a second thought, I saved his pictures, each one, along with every last image of Jenna I could find. I made sure to capture everything, every single scrap of evidence I could. And then, I messaged his girlfriend. I sent her his pictures and a short message explaining what I'd discovered. It felt wrong, betraying someone's secret like that, but at the same time, I figured, if it was happening to me, I'd want someone to tell me. She deserved the truth as much as I did. And with that handled, I took a deep breath and prepared myself for the confrontation that lay ahead. I wasn't sure how Jenna would respond, but I was beyond caring. I was done with the secrets, the lies, the betrayal. I was about to lay it all out in the open. I stormed back into the living room, her phone in hand, and nudged her awake. She was still so drunk that it took a few tries, but finally, she came to, her eyes barely open. I didn't waste time. I shoved her phone at her and demanded an explanation. Her response was an incoherent mess, a mixture of denials and slurred excuses that only fueled my anger. Every time she tried to speak, she'd contradict herself, stumbling over her own words. And as she stammered, I noticed she kept glancing down at her phone, her fingers twitching. It took me a second to realize what she was doing. She was deleting things, deleting the evidence right in front of me, like erasing those pictures would somehow make all of this go away. I reached for her hand, trying to stop her, but it was too late. She was already so far gone, so absorbed in her own denial that she couldn't even see the damage she'd done. I couldn't take it anymore. I turned on my heel and walked out of the house, leaving her there with her half-erased lies. The weight of it all felt crushing as I crossed the property to my mom's house. She lived nearby, just down the driveway, and as I walked, I tried to make sense of the storm in my mind. Every step felt like wading through thick mud, every breath a struggle. I finally reached her door and let myself in, feeling the familiar warmth of home surround me. My mom was already asleep, so I slipped into the living room and sat down, burying my face in my hands. My 3-year-old daughter was there too, asleep on the couch. Seeing her like that, so peaceful, hit me harder than I expected. She didn't know any of this, didn't understand the betrayal and heartbreak that had ripped through my life. To her, Jenna was still Mommy, the same woman who tucked her in at night, who read her stories, even if only occasionally. I picked her up, holding her close, and sat with her for a while, feeling her tiny breaths against my shoulder. As I rocked her, I wondered what I was going to do. My daughter needed stability, a sense of security, and the last thing I wanted was for her to feel the pain I was going through. Hours passed like this, just me and my little girl, the silence heavy around us. Eventually, I put her to bed, my mind racing with 1,000 questions. And then, as if the universe wanted to make sure I didn't get a moment's peace, my phone buzzed. It was Jenna, texting me at 2 in the morning. "We need to talk," she wrote. I stared at the screen, my anger rekindling, but part of me knew I had to face her again. I couldn't leave it like this, as much as I wanted to. I went back home, every step feeling heavier than the last. The only thing on my mind was divorce. I'd already made up my mind. There was no going back after everything I'd seen. But when I walked in, there she was, waiting for me with tear-streaked cheeks and a desperate look in her eyes. She immediately fell to her knees, begging, pleading, saying things I never expected to hear. She claimed she was turning into her mother, that she'd been fighting it, but losing ground. I knew about her mom's struggles. She'd battled bipolar disorder for years, along with other issues I didn't fully understand. It had left scars on Jenna, that much I'd always known, but she'd hidden it well for most of our marriage. I didn't want to believe that her actions, her betrayals, could be brushed off as some twisted inheritance from her mother, but part of me wondered if there was truth to it. Jenna had always been haunted by the fear of becoming her mother, the fear of falling down that same dark path. But was that really enough to explain everything she'd done? Through her tears, she said the photos were just for attention, a way to fill some void she couldn't explain. She claimed it was nothing more than that, just pictures, and that she'd never meant to hurt me. As she spoke, she began calling herself every name under the sun, berating herself, her voice breaking with every word. She begged me to forgive her, to give her another chance, insisting that she still loved me, that none of this meant anything. And maybe that was what hurt the most. Because if she truly loved me, if she still cared about me at all, then why would she do this? Why send nudes to other men? Men who didn't care about her, men who saw her as nothing more than a passing thrill. And why, of all people, would she send those pictures to her stepdad? That twisted relationship had always felt wrong to me, but now I was left wondering just how deep it went. Was she telling the truth, or was this just another excuse to hide behind? Another way to avoid responsibility? As she sobbed in front of me, I could see a part of her was broken. That much was clear. But I didn't know if I could fix her, if I even wanted to try. Her pleas were like a dull ache in my chest, a reminder of the love we once had, a love that now felt like a lie. I stood there, feeling hollow, feeling betrayed, and completely at a loss. She kept talking, her words blurring together as I tried to process it all. I thought about our daughter, about what kind of life she'd have if we stayed together, if I decided to stay and pretend that none of this had happened. Could I ever look at Jenna the same way again? Could I ever trust her, knowing that she'd betrayed me in ways I'd never even imagined? Part of me wanted to believe her, to accept her apologies and try to rebuild what we'd lost. But another part of me was screaming that it was too late, that she'd crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. I didn't have an answer. I didn't know what I was supposed to feel, what I was supposed to do. All I knew was that the woman in front of me, the woman I'd loved, was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. And so I stood there, caught between the past and the future, uncertain of where to go next, but knowing that nothing would ever be the same. Sitting here on what's supposed to be my birthday, watching the first hints of daylight pour in through the blinds, I'm still wide awake after a night that seems to have stretched into a lifetime. I haven't slept a wink, and honestly, I don't think I could even if I tried. The images from last night just keep playing back in my mind, like a movie stuck on a loop I can't shut off. She says she didn't get any money for it, swears it was all just for attention. But here's the thing. I've poured my attention into her from day one. I've treated her like the only person in the world, like she was my queen, and always did my best to make her feel valued and cherished. In this broken moment, all I can think about is my daughter. She's the one thing that feels steady and real in my life right now. I'd give anything to shield her from this mess. The thought of her growing up in the middle of a split makes my chest tighten with dread. I know that if I walk away, there's a high chance my wife could end up with full custody. And if that happens, it means my little girl might be spending her days under the roof of a man who's been nothing but bad news for as long as I've known him. Her dad, as he likes to call himself, has manipulated and controlled my wife since she was young. The idea of my daughter ever being alone around him twists my stomach into knots. The reality of Texas custody laws hits me hard as I think about how fathers are often the ones left out in the cold when it comes to custody rights. And dragging her through a bitter court battle feels almost as wrong as just letting things go. So here I am, caught between two impossible choices, weighing out what would be best for my little girl and how far I'll go to protect her from a situation she had no part in creating. It's the kind of heart-wrenching decision that no one prepares you for, but here I am, grappling with it on what should be my birthday. After hours of sitting there, staring blankly at the wall, I finally get up and go into our daughter's room. She's asleep, peacefully unaware of the storm brewing around her. Her little fingers are curled around her stuffed animal, her small chest rising and falling in the gentle rhythm of childhood. Watching her in this moment of calm reminds me of what matters, and I start to question the choices I'm making. Am I setting a good example by staying with someone who has clearly chosen strangers' validation over the loyalty we built? Or, if I walk away, am I setting her up to grow up in a broken home, one where I'd only be a part-time parent? I'm torn between trying to give her stability by sticking around and showing her what self-respect looks like by leaving. It's a choice with no perfect answer, but I'm beginning to see that I might have to pick a side sooner than later. By the time my wife comes back from her hair appointment, I've been stewing in this all day. She walks in, and it hits me just how surreal this all is. She's acting like it's a regular day, like I haven't been sitting here sleepless, replaying every moment, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. She even has the audacity to look surprised when I don't smile at her new haircut. She starts talking, going on about trivial things, and I hold up my hand to stop her, feeling the weight of what I'm about to say before the words even come out. I'm done, I say, my voice steady but final. There's no turning back now. Her face drops. For a moment, she just stares at me, like she's realizing for the first time that I might actually mean it. Then she starts pleading, her words tumbling out, promising that it was all just a big mistake, that she was just going through a phase, a crisis, something that wasn't really her. But as I listen, the words sound hollow. It's too late for empty reassurances. I tell her that I can't keep going like this, that I refuse to live with one foot out the door, always wondering when the next betrayal might come. I explain that I have to think about our daughter, about what it means for her to see her father stand by while her mother treats him like a fool. She starts crying, begging, insisting she'll change. But I've heard those promises before, and as I stand there, feeling the weight of every lie and broken vow, something inside me hardens. It's not anger, exactly. It's clarity. Over the next few days, I make my plans. I go to see a lawyer, not because I'm certain I want a divorce, but because I need to understand what I'm up against if it comes to that. I gather evidence, write down everything that's happened, every message I've seen, every conversation we've had, just to have my side of the story straight. It's a strange feeling, preparing for a battle that I never wanted to fight. But my daughter deserves to have a father who's willing to do whatever it takes to protect her. This morning, as I finish packing a few things, I realize I'm not angry anymore. I'm just sad. Sad for the man who thought he had a future with a woman he could trust. Sad for the daughter who might never get to grow up in a home where her parents truly loved each other. I grab the last of my things and head for the door, knowing that this might be the hardest step I'll ever take. As I walk out, I hear her calling after me, and I turn one last time. There's a part of me that wants to run back, to give it one more shot, to forgive her and hope for the best. But I know better. I've learned the hard way that some things, once broken, can't be put back together. I close the door behind me, and with it, the chapter of my life I thought would last forever. Outside, I take a deep breath, letting the cool morning air fill my lungs. The world feels strangely quiet, like it's holding its breath right along with me. I look up at the sky, the same sky that's been there through every joy, every heartbreak, every moment I thought I couldn't get through. I know the road ahead won't be easy, but as I step forward, I feel a sense of calm I haven't felt in a long time. And somewhere deep inside, I know that, despite everything, I'll be okay. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday, I'll be able to look back on this and see it as the moment I chose to put myself and my daughter first. Thanks for watching my story. I recommend checking out one of my past stories. Subscribe to the channel and give it a like.